A lot of people make overcoming objections a lot harder than it has to be. Now, in this video, I can tell you that you need to study scripts, you need to actually get out in the field and get your hands dirty and get comfortable with thinking on your feet, which is all true, but that's not what you came for. So, in this video, I'm going to give you some immediate tips that you can actually start using on your sales calls to increase your closing rate. So, let's get into it. Now, a lot of people think that objections equals bad lead quality, but in reality, objections is just uncertainty that whatever you're selling is actually A, going to work for them, and B, actually delivers the results that you're promising. Now, when you are actually able to bring people to clarity simply, both sides win. And obviously, we want people that are coming to us that are already qualified and already have certainty, right? But that's like level 10 out of 10. So we need to have ways on sales calls to actually increase the certainty, right? And one of the best ways to actually do this is to not fight the objections head on, right? Because objections aren't attacks; they're really just tests for who has the most certainty, and whoever does at the end of the call ultimately wins. Now, someone that does this extremely well is going to be Dana White, right? The head promoter and owner of the UFC, because he's constantly having to battle and maneuver through different types of questions. Now, he does three things very specific that I want to go into that you can start using on your sales calls immediately. Now, the first is going to be he controls the frame. And he knows that the calmest voice in the room wins because people don't follow the loudest voice, they follow the most certain, right? So, an example, if a reporter asks, why are UFC fighters so underpaid? Dana shoots back. He says, that's the narrative, sure, but we've made more millionaires than any other combat sport in history. That's just the reality, right? So, again, he frames it to control. Now, how does that would apply to a sales call, right? A prospect says, how do I know this isn't just another overpriced coaching program? And you would say, great question. So one of my most successful clients asked this. Let's walk through how we make sure this works for you and why this is different than your typical coaching program. Now, the key thing here, right, is to don't act surprised. Act like you've heard this 1,000 times and frame their skepticism as normal and position yourself as calm, confident, and in control, right? Because if you have heard it, 100 times, then you should be confident and in control. Now, next thing that he does extremely well is he answers what matters, not what's asked, right? Because he doesn't want to fight on their terms. He wants to lead the narrative by shifting the conversation to what actually moves the needle, right? So, for example, the reporter asks, why is fighter X getting a title shot when he's ranked 7th? And Dana just simply goes, this is what the fans want, right? They made it known and loud enough, so we made it happen. End of story. So, boom, he's just telling them exactly what actually matters. Now, how this again relates to a sales call, if a prospect says, I've tried something like this before and it didn't work. How is this different? And you would say, yeah, totally fair. A lot of people I've worked with have tried other things before this. But the real question isn't what didn't work, it's why it didn't work for you. And that's what we figure out, then we build around that so our system works for you for the long term. So the key thing here, right, is to not get stuck in the weeds and always zoom out and see the transformation and the outcome. Now, the last thing that he does extremely well is he uses humor to diffuse pressure, right? Because pressure doesn't shake leaders, humor disarms it. Because confidence isn't just what you say, it's how relaxed you are while saying it, right? So, another example, if a reporter asks, what if this fight flops? Dana would say, if I wanted easy, I would be selling popcorn. This is the UFC. Let's talk after the fights, right? So again, he uses humor to immediately just diffuse that type of question. Now, if you want to see the exact word for word that you can start using on your sales calls, I have a 16-page document with over 50 objections and different ways to actually answer these objections that you can use. Now, just send me the word sales on Instagram and I'll send it right over.